Hi guys, Keith Keller, Melbourne, Australia, and you're watching another episode of Better Than Real Life Events. And I just went and got the URL betterthanreallifetv.com. Very excited. I'm pointing that at my YouTube playlist. So this particular show is going live to YouTube and to Periscope for the moment. Periscope closes down at the end of March, and we've got a new site where we're trying next week called Haps, which is a very good look-alike to Periscope. We're going to showcase that next week so that you'll have a bit of a sense of what Periscope could become. This is a show dedicated to the idea that live streaming and a very key phrase now, hybrid events, are indeed better than real life. And that's an arguable topic which we'll talk about today. And more importantly, they'll give you a chance to communicate with your buddies if you can't travel, if you can't, because the virus is too heavy in your town or your country, you can't really move around freely. So today we're going to talk about a lot of really cool things. Live streaming platforms, live streaming software, online event software, and really cool events happening around the world, including St. Patrick's Day, which I think has about 1 minute left to go, or I think we might have just cracked the hour now. And a big hello to everyone around the world celebrating St. Patrick's Day. We'll talk about that a bit more today. And also we're going to talk a little bit about what are we doing now to network if we can't go out in person. Are we using Clubhouse and Twitter Spaces, or are we still using LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram maybe? So I'm going to run the room. We've got a big global audience. Again, I love this show. Toronto up the top, Jen Kelly in Toronto, Doyle Bueller in Perth, Lisa in San Diego, Simon in Dublin, and a good friend of mine in Melbourne, Australia, 20 minutes from my house, but we've never met in person. Eloise Grace. So I'll run the room, but I'll start with the top. Jen, I want you to tell us a little bit about what you're doing there in Toronto, but more importantly, what live streaming software or live streaming platforms are you using, and how is this helping you adjust to the virus that we all have to deal with now?
Exactly. Well, Jen Kelly from Toronto, Canada. I run a service called Nimble Quotes, and it posts inspirational quotes to your Twitter feed as if you've tweeted it yourself. So beyond doing that, I run a marketing company. And one of the things that we've been doing with live streaming software is we are doing a weekly podcast now. It's myself and 4 other marketing consultants.
Wow.
It's really neat. So we've got another one here in Canada and 3 of them down in the US. And what's neat about that is each of our businesses focus on a different area of serving a different type of customer. And so every Thursday at noon Eastern, we run about 45 minutes, and we talk a lot about either the issue of the day in marketing or some kind of problem or challenges that some of our clients are coming up against. And you have, 5 different opinions, and points of view based on what the issue is. For that, thankfully, I have to tell you, I just prepare and show up and put in my 2 cents and, keep the conversation going. We have one of the fellows that is on the panel. He's in charge of all the tech, and he has chosen StreamYard to use. And
oh, wow. Okay.
Amazing. Yeah. It is just easy. So not from the technical point of view, but from the participant point of view, really easy, very stable. And you can do all these things like you have going on. The messages at the bottom, it looks very, very professional, really stable, really easy. And we do have guests some weeks that it's just not the 5 of us talking. So for any guest to come in who's not used to the platform, it's really been quite simple. So low barrier to entry, it feels like, and a really good user experience.
Well, let me just pick up on what you've said there, because this is StreamYard here, right here. We're using StreamYard. So low barrier to entry, stable, works every time. Works every time, reliably every time. So that's very, very important. It's easy to use because I call myself a professional dumbass. Like I think I know what I'm talking about, but most of the time I'm just making it up. So StreamYard's very easy to use. It's very cost effective, $25 to stream to 3 places. It looks great. works every time, and more importantly, and probably the most important part, very easy for the guests to actually come on. Would you say that as a guest, it's very easy for you to participate?
Yeah, it really is. It really is. And in my business, we're using Zoom a lot, but that's for internal meetings and client meetings and whatnot. So I have to tell you, I was a little bit hesitant coming on to StreamYard. I just thought, oh my goodness, because every time we try to go on Teams or something else, there's always, you're just not used to the platform. But no, it's been easy. And that's important too, right? You have guests on your podcast or on the show, and the thing you want them feeling comfortable and just ready to participate, not getting all stressed out about logging in and all that. So it's been a great thing.
Yeah, well, that's great. So I would be a great advocate of StreamYard and its direct competitor, Restream, which we will talk a bit about today. But what about you, Simon? What software do you use to live stream, and what platforms do you stream them to?
Well, it's changing. This one's pretty good, as Jen was mentioning. So the one we're on today is pretty effective. I did a week-long summit last week, which was kind of live streaming, as in we had live guests, but that was run pretty much on Zoom. I think you mentioned Hopin earlier on, Keith. So
yeah.
That's pretty good too. In terms of streaming live, I suppose the main two platforms would be LinkedIn and YouTube in terms of streaming content live.
Yeah.
Although, a little bit of Twitter live video too. And of course, then you've got this whole, which I'm sure we'll get onto, this whole social audio space with, Clubhouse, Twitter Spaces, etc. So you've got all that going on. So it's kind of changing a little bit, to be honest with you. Interestingly, today, we were talking, I know we'll come on to St. Patrick's Day, but it was the first time I'm aware that the Taoiseach of Ireland, so that the Prime Minister, if you like, depending on the terminology used to, but the Taoiseach of Ireland, Micheál Martin, live streamed into the White House, So
wow.
we're talking here about streaming, and the Taoiseach of Ireland had a live stream with Joe Biden today. So there's kind of big things going on there. We think about live streaming in this sort of environment, but it's kind of everybody has to do it from the president down. So there's been some other interesting things like the Orchestra of Light today in Ireland.
Yes.
Which you may have seen online because it was pretty big. Because there's no parade, people aren't meeting in person around lots of parts of the world due to the pandemic. Tourism Ireland, Dublin City Council, in collaboration with Intel, everybody's heard of Intel, and a company called Actavo Events, they did this drone-enabled light festival to spread a message of hope around the world, and that was streamed out to the world. So live streaming is really changing. But listen, we'll get into it, I'm sure. Good to be here.
Yeah. And let me bring there's a couple of people on Doyle's having some trouble getting in. I'll bring him in a minute. Lisa, can you first of all tell us about this cool drawing you did live a couple of weeks ago, and in the context of live streaming, have you been doing a lot of live streaming, and have you tried some stuff, and what do you like, and what's working?
Well, yes. I mean, this drawing, as you know, was done live on one of these podcasts, whatever you want to call it, one of these live streams, a couple of weeks ago. This is my iPad, and I'm using a third-party software that I think also streams. I'm using it as an extra camera, but I think it also does stream to YouTube and Facebook. It's called Minicam.
Minicam, yeah.
Yeah. So I think I have a link here. I can put in for everybody. And so it's so I use this. I found it because I was looking for a solution, because I don't run a lot of live streams myself, but I'm on a lot of other people's live streams taking notes at their meetings in this technique that I'm using, that some people call sketchnoting, some people call graphic recording. And so I was looking for a solution that would allow me to swap out my camera, my Zoom, mostly on Zoom meetings, my Zoom camera for the screen. See, I can make myself completely disappear, and then all you've got is the picture, or I can have picture in picture, or it can be just me, like this. So,
and as a guest on other this is fascinating for me. As a guest on other people's live streams, what sites are you finding you're getting invited to most? Is it Zoom? Is it StreamYard? Is it
I live on
Restream?
Zoom. It's mostly Zoom. I will
Mostly
say
Zoom.
that,
Okay.
yeah, mostly Zoom. I like StreamYard a lot, but it's mostly Zoom, and I think it's good for the interaction and a lot of people being able to participate. I've had to go on Teams a bunch of times recently because new clients of mine, that's what they use inside of their company, and it's really disorienting when you're used to Zoom to not be able to rely on all of the familiar crutches that I have and your fancy background. And I mean, I really haven't actually seen where I live on Zoom in months and months. I have this wonderful background that everyone says, "Oh, I love your apartment." It's like, it's not my apartment.
Yeah.
But I feel like I live there because I see myself sitting in there all day long.
Well, the reason why that's important, Lisa, is because you mentioned a couple of things. Zoom, everyone's heard of Zoom. Teams, most people have heard of Teams and are using it regularly. A lot of people say it's not very good, but it's available to everyone. My wife uses it for work, and it's very common. It's not very popular necessarily, but it's very common. So there's a lot of different sites, and that's what this is actually what this show's about. If you're living in a town where you can't go into the city and hug people or even bump them with the elbow, maybe live streaming or hybrid events, which were going to become a major idea soon, are really important. But with that in mind, I want to bring my friend Eloise in because she loves going and meeting people in real life, and we're lucky because we can.
Yes.
But tell us a little bit about that. But with that in mind, what else are you using on the days that you can't?
Of course, first, can I just start by saying we are so lucky in Melbourne. We're so grateful, and obviously we're aware of the rest of the world and what's going on. So we, appreciate how we are here, but we're also considerate of everybody worldwide at the moment. We're hoping, things get under control. I have been using Zoom a lot throughout the last year or so, especially during all the different lockdowns in Melbourne for various reasons, networking, business, for school events, for appointments for my son, non-stop basically. Everybody's been requesting Zoom. StreamYard I've been using with you, which has been fantastic. I've really enjoyed that. I love how it looks like TV. I think that's really cool with all the supers. So I definitely would be really interested in using more StreamYard as well. And I have somebody at the door. Sorry, can you hang up on me for a second, please, and I'll come back.
Yeah, okay, no worries. I'll take you out. There it is, live streaming. You can't get any more live than that. There's someone at the door. So with that in mind, let's bring Doyle in because you've actually used a lot of these sites, Zoom, Teams, Restream, and StreamYard. What are you finding you gravitating towards most?
A good question. I was just going to comment that we got caught live streaming live. So real life live streaming. Yeah, something like that. Anyway, the channels that we can use are really quite varied, and you and I, we tested a lot in 2020, which was really, really cool. Yeah, thank you, Keith. I see them there. StreamYard, Restream, Zoom, something else, and then Teams.
Teams are very, very poor number 5 for you, is it?
Yeah, sorry, Teams. But I think it really depends on what you're actually using them for, and that's the important ingredient here. StreamYard and Restream, they're great for live broadcasts, right? Zoom is much better for, meetings, for, get-togethers, for networking, for sessions and that sort of thing. But Zoom can obviously go live, but Restream and StreamYard are actually pretty good for just what we're doing right here. We're getting a bunch of people together, we're talking about a topic, and we're going live onto the social channels as well. So for that, it's perfect. If we want to modify it, if we want to have better groups or more interaction, then we kind of have to modify it and move towards Zoom or something like that. So to me, it really depends on what is the ultimate goal that you're trying to do. Are we trying to broadcast? Are we trying to teach? Are we trying to get people together?
Yeah.
Use those criteria.
Horses for courses, yeah?
Yeah.
Well, let's Eloise has answered the door and she's back.
Yeah, I actually have a few deliveries coming today, and they're ones that they won't leave. I said, I always say, just leave them there. But, sometimes you have to open the door.
But look, well, let's pick up on this idea. You're not necessarily live streaming yourself, but you're doing still a lot of networking online and in person because we can 9 days in a row of zero, and we did that because we locked ourselves in a room for 100 days.
Most of last year. Yeah,
we did. It was shocking. But the point is that now we're coming out the other side. So separate to the idea that you love in-person networking, we can talk about that too.
Yeah.
What are you using? Are you using LinkedIn? Are you using Facebook, Instagram? What do you do?
So LinkedIn is my favorite networking for business. I have different sites for different reasons, but in terms of live streaming, I like Zoom and I like StreamYard. But in terms of just general connecting, I like to add lots of people on LinkedIn and connect with them that way, write to them, and I find that really valuable. But I really, as I was saying, I really enjoy this system we're on today. I think it's been very, very simple to use. It's the second time I've used it. I'd like to use it more. I've just got my at-home background here, nothing fancy, so you'll just see, kids' things in the background. Some people like to use different setups. We're actually a video production service. So one of the businesses we've got is the Andy Grace Media Software System, which is a full video production suite in the cloud. So basically it's an app on your phone where you can make branded movies in 60 seconds and get it to all your social media. We've had news organisations all around Australia using it for years, AAP, Fairfax, and just got another emergency services
company. Pick up on that. I have never really explored what that does. So you're saying that in a very quick way, you can make a video and then put it on a social site if you're in the field. You're at a fire.
Yeah, it's just an app on the phone, just an app on the phone. So you just press start, stop, send, and it adds your own branding onto it. You can just have this one video or make a whole movie. Just get it straight to all your social media. You can just
all right. Well, look, I'm going to jump in and ask Lisa a few questions. You want to pump that into the chat room, and I'll tweet that out for you. So, Lisa, you're saying you love LinkedIn. Tell me about why LinkedIn works for you.
Oh yeah, gosh, I just brought you up on Periscope so I could comment. Oh, turn down the sound. I love LinkedIn. I've been a LinkedIn fan for a long time. It's great for business, and I just make a lot of contacts. I get a lot of business from LinkedIn. It's really it's really much closer to actually doing business with people than most other social networks. So
it's very, very important because you've said to me a few times, look, Keith, I can't keep up with you on Twitter and Facebook and LinkedIn and Snapchat. Just pick one. Pick one and chat to me there. And I'm sure everyone on this call has had that exact same experiment with me because I'm a bit sort of all over the place. But you're saying specifically you've chosen LinkedIn because that's what works for you, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely. And here's a little ninja tip. I'm going to put it in the Periscope comments so that other people can see it. I do. They don't like it, but I've done like a little redirect using Pretty Link on my website.
Oh, Pretty Link, yeah.
So if you go to lisarothstein.com/LinkedIn, you will like, which I just posted in. So
you can type and talk at the same time. It's a miracle.
I can try. Yeah. Actually, I do the same thing with Zoom. I have a Zoom link, like the link that they give you in your Zoom account. It saves me a ton of time. Instead of having people going back and forth saying, "Oh, I lost the link. Can you give me the link?" Blah blah blah. I just use the same link every time, but I have a redirect from my website that just goes straight there. That I won't tell you now because I don't want everybody showing up to my meetings. But it's great because none of my guests ever forget the link.
Yeah, well, I want to bring in Simon on this because we've talked a lot about LinkedIn. LinkedIn seems to be coming up as a reliable networking site. But both Doyle and Simon have LinkedIn Live. Are you broadcasting there? Are you watching streams there?
Ooh, do these work? I'm so jealous. Boo. I've been waiting for it.
Yeah, I've been waiting since September 7th, just to let you know if you haven't heard that story before. I've applied 5 times.
LinkedIn envy. Ooh.
Anyway, Simon, you've got it. Are you using it? Is it working? Is it worth doing?
It is. There's a few considerations, though, and I think what Lisa was just talking about, a lot of people, me included, live on LinkedIn for business, and it depends on the type of content that you're streaming, right? Because if LinkedIn's kind of the place where you hang out with a lot of your business connections and your day-to-day work, if all of a sudden you're live streaming other types of content or other themes that maybe are a little non-core to your sort of typical use of LinkedIn, that's a serious consideration. So then there's things like YouTube, which maybe is a little bit more sort of wide and variety, just because of the. I don't think YouTube it's a huge video platform, of course, but I don't think it's seen in the same sort of officey business, white collary kind of way. Whereas LinkedIn sort of has that global business Rolodex. It's where all my business contacts are. It's not as free and easy and maybe as divisive as Twitter is. YouTube's a bit more sort of entertainment and media consumption. Whereas with LinkedIn streaming, I think you need a core message. Now, something like this, I think, is fine on LinkedIn. But like, for example, I don't see broadcasting the latest song from my band on LinkedIn. Do you know what I mean?
Yes,
I'm not
but
sure.
Simon, why wouldn't you just use the same strategy for your live broadcasts on LinkedIn as you would for any other content you post there? I mean, you would just have I come from a branding background, so I just it makes sense to me that you would just pick topics for your live broadcast that would be in line with the other things that you're posting there.
Yeah, I think so. And if you look at sort of lives, I agree, Lisa, but I think when you look at the aggregators, maybe if I can throw that term in, where you're kind of using one platform a little bit like we are today, then it's aggregating it out to other platforms. I think that's when the consideration is, because it's very easy to click that, yes, send it there, send it here, and send it there. Whereas from an individual personal level, I think it's fine. But when you add in the mix of brands, companies, sponsors, topics, I think that gets quite complex quite quickly. So you're dead right. I fully agree with you. I think
we haven't discussed the elephant in the room. At least it's the elephant in the room in America. Is who here is on Clubhouse?
Okay, let's have the Clubhouse discussion.
Clubhouse, but it's bizarre because I do everything visually, and I love Clubhouse when you can't even see me and you can't see my things. But it's really good. I think it's great for networking.
But
I'm
as
really
a visual artist, don't you feel that you need that sort of visual element as part of what you do and how you talk?
I talk about other things. The artwork part of what I do is just a means to an end. It's really all about communication and all about. I facilitate workshops. I help with innovation sessions and things like that. So it's not. This is not the core of what I do. So I belong to a lot of clubs that have to do with innovation. And that have to do with messaging and brand messaging, because that's really my main background. So I find it's really good for just having just connecting with people and listening to them and learning from them.
Yeah,
so,
well, let's actually have this discussion. Let's have this discussion now. It was actually part of the discussion, but we'll have it now.
Oh, sorry, I stepped up.
No, it's very freeform. So one of the key considerations today is that Melbourne, very lucky, Eloise and I, we can go out, we can meet our mates, we can have coffee. As long as we put our QR code reader and they know where we are, we can go out and we can even, bump shoulders and probably even shake hands now. But in other parts of the world, we can't. So several really cool pieces of tech have evolved to allow us to network with people around the world. And one of those is Clubhouse, which is an audio-only app. 13 million people have signed up, so not everyone in the world's heard of it. And it's an iPhone-only service, but it's huge. And Twitter has a variation on it called Twitter Spaces. So, Jen, I haven't actually had a chance to talk to you about this. What do you think of Clubhouse and/or Twitter Spaces? And is it huge in Canada too?
Yes and yes. So I have to tell you, all of the folks that I know and all of our clients that are Android only are not very impressed with that, right? They're feeling very, very left out because it's iPhone only. The thing is with Clubhouse, so I am dipping a toe in the water and been a listener and a participant. I have not hosted my own room there. I am still getting used to it. What is very interesting about it is, though, you have to be there. You have to be participating. There is no, pre-scheduling your answers. You know what I mean? So you have to be live in there and really participating in the whole conversation. And it's fabulous that way. Another thing I think is going to attract either more people quickly, or the bunch of folks that are still hesitant about video, is that, it's audio only. You don't have to be looking beautiful to say your 2 cents and to participate in the conversations. So I quite like it. And then just getting a little bit newer into the Twitter Spaces, but already how you can show your either appreciation or your vote or your opinion of what some of the speakers are saying silently on Twitter Spaces. I think that's a neat thing. You can have the emojis go up and people can understand your reaction. I think that's
are they very similar, or are they quite different?
I think they're a little bit different. They are. So I think Twitter Spaces is, lagging behind for sure. Clubhouse is the big one right now. But they've got just like, all these different social networks that come out. There's a few little features on here that are not on there. And I think it's going to divide. I really do. Folks are going to choose one over the other, and away you go. But I think the Twitter Spaces has breathed new life into Twitter. There's a lot of people that, thought, oh, it's too fast, not for me. I think this is going to bring a lot of folks back.
Well, it's very important for you because you have a Twitter-related product, Nimble Quotes, which I love.
Mm-hmm.
Really cool quotes that come out every day, with really great images. So it's very important. I knew you'd have an opinion on this. But Doyle, have you tried both? What are your thoughts on Clubhouse and or Twitter Spaces?
I actually haven't tried Twitter Spaces yet, but it's interesting because there's another one, an Android-only one. I'm going to see if I can find the name. That every time I say, hey, do you want to join in on Clubhouse? They go, hey, why don't you join in on this one? And it's an Android, or it includes Android.
Is it Riverside FM?
No. Sorry, I'll find it and then I'll post it.
All right, we'll come back to us on that.
No, I've tried Clubhouse, and then I kind of have dipped my toes in the water too and listened to a lot and added to the conversation, that sort of thing. I haven't actually hosted my own rooms yet. I'm just kind of waiting to see. I think that's the important part here, is you don't necessarily have to jump into everything right away. It's like, take your time, see where your audience is, see, can you deliver some remarkable content as well. And that's, to me, the defining moment there is like, once you get that clarity, then go for it. Right. But just, and of course you can experiment, and don't get me wrong. I'm not saying don't try that out, but have an idea of what you want to do, what you want to accomplish, how you're going to actually do that, and then find the channel that works for that would be my recommendation.
And what about you, Simon? You've tried both, and you've even done Twitter polls and experiments with both. What are you thinking of the differences are, and why does the iPhone only app thing really work, and how long can they sustain that?
They're all great questions. Look, Android's coming to the platform as soon as they can get it scaled.
Okay.
There's something very interesting about, the limited availability of it, and you having to give an invite to somebody else, because it is still invite only. It is still in beta. And that's kind of created a bit, because if I give an invite to somebody who I don't know, who then trolls or crashes rooms or does something wrong or violates the terms of service, that can have an impact on me. So I'm kind of thinking carefully about who I give my invites to. Now, I'm sure not everybody's maybe giving it the same level of thought, but I must share with you all, I was very fortunate to be on the Podcast Culture Conference, which took place on Saturday. And I've got to say, hands down, this was the best conference that I have seen hosted on Clubhouse by far to date. It was absolutely superbly executed. They had a photo booth where you could change your profile image on Clubhouse so you could be part of it. It had the organizers, the speakers. It was as though you were there in person. And I know it's hard to sort of get that into the head because it was audio only. But if you just go to podcastculture.club online, if people are listening to this.
So let me just get that right. Podcastculture.club.
Yeah. In my humble opinion, I think it's the best execution I have seen so far, and I've seen a lot, of people using Clubhouse to its full potential. It was superbly executed by a lady called Carlette Hewitt, who was sort of the person behind the scenes running it. You'd Mario Armstrong and Sean Anthony kind of fronting it, and the guests that were brought in were superb. It just went on for many, many hours. They had a green room set up behind the scenes for people that were coming to the stage.
Yeah.
They had engagement. They had side channels going on and Slack. And if you are interested in how people are using Clubhouse outside of just the standard, let's create a room, let's have a chat in real time. The other thing that I've seen happening, which you may also be interested in, is the amount of people who are now parallel broadcasting between Clubhouse and Twitter Spaces. Doyle was just referencing Twitter Spaces there a moment ago. And there are people now pushing it out with two separate audiences, the same topic on two separate platforms, while at the same time live streaming it to YouTube. Now, there was a little bit of a gray area around terms and conditions and audio only, but people are getting around that by putting a little red badge in the name of the club and saying this is being recorded. And as long as you sort of tell the people up front that you're recording the audio, it's kind of being allowed at the moment.
Yeah.
There's a weekly meeting where all these T's and C's get updated, but it is changing rapidly, even though it's still in beta. And as you said, Keith, 13 million people later, this thing's only going to grow and grow. And I think the audio, there's something quite magical about audio, as we all know. If you've listened to audio podcasts, or if you're a podcast fanatic, or if you listen to Audible books, sometimes the pictures in the mind are...
Well, here's an interesting stat. I was part of this recent study, and 55% of Americans now listen to a podcast. So there's something in it. There's something in this idea that this is just a genius idea to think that they're paralleling Twitter Spaces, Clubhouse, and also doing live streaming, because Doyle and I constantly use this phrase, remarkable experiences worth remembering. Because what's happening with the people that are not being creative is we have boring heads. There's just this group of people in a row. We've seen this format before a zillion times, 100 times
Keith,
before.
Watch this. Now I'm in Clubhouse, and we can talk and have a conversation. Look, it's just me talking, and I don't have to worry about my hair, my makeup, my lighting, everything. But guess what? Now I'm back. This is video. This is audio. So let's go back. Let's go back here. This is easy. This is relaxing on my brain. All I have to do is talk.
Just follow the bouncing ball. Follow the bouncing ball.
Follow the bouncing ball. Exactly. So we can have Clubhouse on StreamYard. Like, isn't that cool?
That's cool.
Does that fit in with this that great phrase that you inspire me with every single day? Let's have remarkable experiences worth remembering. Let's not have the boring heads.
Yeah, is create a remarkable digital experience worth remembering. That's fundamentally what we need to do, and what we need to strive for as well is how do we make it better? How do we make it more engaging or less engaging or less, stimulating or not stimulating, but less requirement to be able to do that. So can we just do this and create a remarkable digital experience worth remembering? Absolutely, we can. As Simon mentioned, the podcast culture, right? What did you call it? Podcast culture
got club. I'm just about to punch that into the chat room now.
But that's how they've done it, is they're experimenting, and I guess that's one of the main key ingredients here is don't be afraid to experiment. Don't be afraid to try things out and see, hey, does this work? Does it work with my audience, with my community? How can I actually use it for a business purpose? Let's be honest.
Okay, well let's bring Eloise in here, because for a couple of reasons. Not everyone is trying everything. And so as a person that loves to network in person and at a pinch on LinkedIn and Zoom, have you thought of using Clubhouse and Twitter Spaces? Have you even heard of it?
I have heard of it, but I haven't used them as such yet. I'm a real video person. I love teaching, presenting. I love presenting myself. I'm an actor. I'm a model. I'm always, I like to see people. I like to see faces. I like to see expressions and smiles and eyes. And all of that sort of thing. But, you know, I have worked in radio before. I know lots and lots of radio announcers, and that's obviously a great way of communicating as well. Personally, I like to see people. I just love seeing people. So I've listened to all the comments, and yeah, I see that you guys have really had really valuable, fantastic experiences with Clubhouse. So it sounds pretty cool. So I'd like to check it out and see what it's all about.
Yeah. So you've heard of it, but you haven't been inspired to try it.
No, I think I saw my sister-in-law once put on Facebook, you know, connect with me here or whatever. So I have heard of it. She's really into tech. So
yeah, well, look, I think it's increasingly important because, like, the virus isn't going to go away in a very short time.
Yeah.
Just today's news is that we've closed the borders to Papua New Guinea, just in case you haven't heard that story. So Australia is relatively virus-free, but a small country in the north of us has been, you know, coming into work, and they've got the virus. So we're closing the borders to them, and we're sending them the vaccine. And that's going to be the norm till at least 2022. And I was saying to Simon yesterday that I'm creating an Ireland list because I want to go there, but there's no way that I'm going to go there for at least the next 12 months. So I want to create, in this particular format, I want to create the better than real life example. You know, I want to create stuff that people can use, people can learn from and be inspired by. So, for instance, Eloise really got a great insight into what Clubhouse and Twitter Spaces could do for her, given that she's a very visual person. She's worked in radio, but she's a model, and she works in television, and she's you know, on camera a lot. So it wouldn't have occurred to her to use it, but maybe there is a chance to use it. The other thing I want to do is I want to see this play out. Watch this. Like, Lisa's drawing this as we're going. Can you believe this?
Isn't that cool?
so cool.
I love it.
And
thanks, Lisa.
So Lisa's on the call talking about Clubhouse and Twitter Spaces and LinkedIn and drawing her thoughts.
Wow.
Tell us, Lisa, why that's really powerful, and why is this so much better than just writing notes?
Well, it keeps me occupied. It keeps me very focused. So I actually really enjoy that. And
you're not saying you're bored though, Lisa, are you?
I'm not bored. It's weird. It's kind of a meditative kind of practice. I think that some people who knit or some people who do other things like with their hands while they're listening to things, in some ways you kind of like a really more. It keeps you in the room, you know, in a really kind of cool way. And then, of course, you have something to look at afterwards to remember, oh, yeah, we talked about that and we talked about this. You know, so I'll do this
souvenir, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a souvenir. It's a good souvenir, but even just while you're doing it, it helps you remember what was said. If you know how to draw, even if you know how to do it yourself. I mean, actually, there's not that much drawing on here. A lot of it's mostly lettering, but yeah, so as far as Clubhouse is concerned, I was enamored of it when I first started it, and then I kind of got exhausted because you could spend all day and all night there. I actually sat up all night listening to somebody's conversation one time. I wasn't even participating. There were hundreds of people in the room, but it was such a fascinating thing. It's like a never-ending radio show about topics that, you know, some of them will not interest you, but others will, and I've picked up a lot of great tips. A lot of LinkedIn people are on there. A lot of people who are very like LinkedIn experts are on there, and I have picked up so many great tips. So I mean, you sit there, you take notes. It's like being in a conference like that never ends. So, and then there are also rooms where people are talking about, you know, relationships or health or something like that. You can go in them if you want to, but Now the big thing is crypto. Everyone's talking about crypto on there. So
and NFTs, I'm guessing.
NFTs, yes, that's the new thing. So do you want to quickly
pick up on NFTs, Simon? I want to just preface this with last week's discussion. I went to Italy, 2018. I would have given anyone in the world 200 euros if they had an app that allowed me not to go to the Vatican. Worst day of my life ever, no exceptions. You know, 100 euros to stand in a line for 8 hours with 1,000 other people looking at art that's 1,000 years old. I get it. I see why you want to go and see those pieces of art, but I don't want to stand in a line to do it. So NFTs are playing out in the art world in the digital space. And just to preface that, what do you think is happening with NFTs?
So NFTs, non-fungible tokens, to you and I, Keith, are an interesting twist. It's sort of proof of ownership, which is blockchain and crypto related, but without getting too much into the weeds about it. There has been a Canadian artist, actually, Grimes, who sold, I think I'm right in saying it was $20 million worth of art, NFT, which was, I think, was 10 pieces of art. And then we had another huge piece of art, NFT art, digital art, auctioned by some of the biggest houses in the world, like Christie's, for example, the auction house.
And that was 69 million, wasn't it?
69 million was the eventual. I'm sure everybody's seen the story because it's done the rounds around the world on social media. And there's a huge debate, right? It's a divided debate. Some people think this is crazy. Other people think, well, of course, why can't you have this ownership of digital things? And it's interestingly, I was only talking to somebody recently about their children's requirements for their birthday. A gentleman I know has twins, and he was saying, what do you want for your birthday? And one wanted V-Bucks and one wanted some other game tokens so they could buy stuff in a virtual environment. And when you think about that and how they are growing up and their world, it's not so much about, look, once you get sort of shelter and all the basics in place, but to them, there's a balance between their physical world and their luxuries and their necessities and their digital world. So I think NFTs are gaining an awful lot of discussion globally. But I don't think it's going away anytime soon. I think it's going to become more and more a thing. And I think it's a little bit like when we first heard about social media or videotapes or compact discs. There's people that go, oh, yeah, I get it straight away. And there's people that take a little bit longer and then go, oh, I wish I'd have known that, or I wish I'd have got into that. And maybe NFTs in 10 years' time. It's a bit like saying when Bitcoin first came out, I remember having the rig. I remember mining for Bitcoins and having a wallet and forgetting the password to the wallet and all the stories that you hear. And now you look at the price of Bitcoin and you go, well, maybe that was something I should have focused a little bit more on now. There's a whole debate, right? We could wax lyrical for days on end about cryptocurrencies and the blockchain. But when you see very large global brands and financial institutions investing in that area, and then you see this explosion of NFTs, it's something that is becoming very serious very quickly.
Well, let me bring Doyle in on this because there's a couple of things. Let me clarify why we're going off on this tangent. You know, we live in Melbourne. We don't have the virus, but many people do. We have coined a phrase better than real life events. In many ways, the online world is better than real life because real life is pretty crappy in some places, especially Papua New Guinea. So we are creating some examples of online forums that allow people to communicate when maybe we couldn't in the real life. I can't fly to Dublin at the moment or to San Diego. I can't get to Toronto. We're not allowed to leave Australia. So with that in mind, we're going off on a bit of a tangent, but NFTs and all of the things we talk about, Doyle, are part of a growing ecosystem of ways of communicating and ways of sort of sharing our goods, aren't they? So what's your take on NFTs that relates to this discussion?
Yeah, well, I mean, fundamentally, it allows that verification process. So we can say unequivocally without, with 100% accuracy that Simon created something, Lisa created something, Eloise created something specific. And you can track that transactions and that sort of thing. I used to be a professional photographer a couple decades back, and you do have like people stealing your work, right? So if you find it, good on you. You might get something for it, but for all that stuff that you don't actually see, that you can't actually find, you know what, you lose out. And as a business, that can, affect you as well. So it allows that trackability, allows that traceability to say that unequivocally, you created this digital work of art, music, video, whatever it is, and that is recorded in history. So it's going to be there in 2,000 years, 3,000 years, as long as there's power applied, I guess. If the power went out everywhere, you might lose it. But That's beside the point.
It's very important for creators because we often get a bum steer, don't we? Like I'm a creator. I mean, I was in a band. I know several of Eloise's friends from my radio days, early radio days. They made it, I didn't. And you know, we've all had a bum steer of being in a band and being ripped off by the pub, and you know, being ripped off and people stealing our stuff. So NFTs offer a really good chance to play out this digital world and track it. Yeah.
Right. And not only that, I mean, anytime anybody buys one and then sells it to someone else, the artist gets a commission or gets some kind
That's
of
right.
It was incredible.
So
I mean, I'm actually talking to some other people who I know whose work I think needs to get out there, and they don't know anything about this. So I'm going to work with them, and at least one person especially. And I basically said, he said, well, what do I pay you? I said, you don't pay me anything. We're going to put this out together, and I'll be like your agent, and I'll take like 10% or something like that. And he's like, great, let's just do it, you know, and maybe it'll turn into something, because I really think his stuff is great. And I think I know people who would be interested in, I know it's not really, it's a weird thing is it doesn't seem to have anything to do with the quality of the actual work. It has to do with all kinds of other
that's a music discussion 101.
Yeah,
like a lot of the number ones.
Art, your definition of art.
Some songs that are number one you can never tell.
Yeah, there was a show on Netflix that they produced this documentary. It was about the traditional art world, and there was like over about 15 years, 20 years, there was this fraud of about $60 million of artwork created by an organized plagiarizer and that network kind of thing, and they managed to sell like $70-80 million of fake artwork, but because there was no way to actually trace it, they had no idea. Even some of the experts were like, oh yeah, that looks like sorry,
well, there's been movies made about that. Have you got some thoughts on this, Simon? You've raised your hand.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned power a few minutes ago, and I think one of the serious considerations in this virtual world is power, because without power, none of this stuff works. And, whether it's the data hosting centers and how they're, having to become more eco-friendly, but just the whole crypto side of a virtual world and virtual digital sort of trace and trackability, it's taking like the power of a small country to just create one of these tokens. And then people that own the tokens are not really using them as a currency, which is what we were all told we'd use them for, because they're valuable and people are holding them a bit like you'd hold an investment in gold or a stock of a company for a long term. So, I'd love to see a variant to traditional currency, or, whether it's digital clicks or whatever, but whether it's dollars or pounds or euros or yen. A digital currency, it's only typically a currency if it's actually traded between people, and most of this stuff isn't. The other thing I wanted to just add in terms of bringing this back around to the virtual discussion is that people still want, if you take the Mona Lisa, let's say that was an NFT, which it isn't, but you can still, the argument is you can get a $10 poster of the Mona Lisa and stick it on your wall, and you've pretty much got almost the same experience. I know art critics will be going crazy at that statement, but if you know what I mean, you've got a pretty good representation of it. And if you're looking at the pixels on the screen, the first tweet from Jack Dorsey is virtual. It exists on the Twitter platform, and yet the last time I looked, I don't know what it went for, but it was up for sale for $3 million. The last quote was for a virtual tweet, his first tweet on the Twitter platform as an NFT. So, I can kind of print that tweet out today. I can look at it on the Twitter platform today for free. But people are doing a bit of a long-term hold and saying, well, no, I'm prepared to invest 3 million, 10 million, 69 million, 20 million, because I think there's a future value here, or a future currency in terms of the ownership, whether it's a resale of the asset or whether it's a longer-term hold strategy for what will come out of that in terms of licensing and trademarks. But it's still developing. I just wanted to make a point as well, if I can just congratulate Lisa on the great work she's doing there, because on the Think Global Forum Summit Week, which was a week-long conference I did last week, I didn't use Lisa because I didn't know Lisa at the time, but I did use a visual artist. And even though it was an online event hosted over 5 days with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people and guest speakers, and we'd got a vice president from Condé Nast opening it, and we'd got a blind global athlete explorer called Mark Pollock who raced to the South Pole, closing the event. It was that was all fantastic, of course, but the visual art that we actually sent to people after each day, because we had it done each day, was a real, first of all, it was a memento that they were there, so they had something that they could remember the event by, because it was streamed. Once it was gone, it was gone. The second thing was, it was amazing how many people took the visuals and gave them to their bosses or their managers and said, this is why what I've been talking to you about is important. So they were using the topics on the visual call-outs almost as leverage, or almost as internal tools in their organizations to say, look, this is the topic, this is what we need to talk about. And I just thought that was fascinating to see that Lisa's doing it here live. So it's great to see. And there's something about, even though it's virtual and streamed, to get something from it, whether it's a memento, a token, a downloadable agenda pack. Like I had somebody doing yoga for 15 minutes on one of the days live, and we all sat in our chairs and did yoga live. And you know what? It was brilliant. It was absolutely fantastic.
Yes.
And you could get a free audio clip of the yoga session if you wanted to download it. So,
and that all comes back to the idea.
It's important. Yeah.
This is what we're talking about, this idea, and this is why watching Lisa draw this live is even better than having the end result, which is also very cool. We're here watching her draw this live, and you should have seen the way she was doing it last time. She actually drew a circle, and then she turned it into a balloon, and she drew a square, and she turned it into a suitcase, and then she was giving us a little lesson on how to draw. So it was very engaging.
Lesson, yeah. I give those all over the place. Because people think they can't do this. People think they can't draw, and it's not about drawing. It's about being able to tell a story with pictures, and help yourself remember. Take notes with pictures so that you can remember things better. Because a picture really is worth 1,000 words. And when you draw a little picture, it means so much that it has. It's like. I don't know if you remember the old Joy perfume ads, that there are like 20 million rose petals in every drop of perfume.
Yes.
It's kind of like the same thing with a picture. So. And
I can't look at a stick man the same again.
Well, that's right.
I know, no more stick man. That was that. I'm here to eradicate the stick figure person from everybody's vocabulary.
Yeah. And what Simon is talking about, to add to that, as well as like those are all elements of a remarkable digital experience, right? The yoga, the illustration. We've got other stuff that we've talked about on other shows, the music, the visual sign language, all these kinds of things that really, when you pull it together, you can create a better than real life event, because you just don't have that capacity to be able to do it. So all of those elements are absolutely critical for being able to say it's not just talking heads like we're doing right here, but there's other elements that can be sort of brought together.
It's far better than this, isn't it?
That's
just far better. This is fine. We've done this a million times. There's people in a room, 6 of us, 8 of us, 100 of us. I've been on Zoom calls with 75 people in the room, and we all know that look. But we can do better. We can do better than this. And I want to bring in some thoughts about next week. I'm actually, with Periscope closing down, which to me is quite a tragedy. It's horrible, isn't it, Lisa? People that love Periscope love it.
I've been on since the very beginning. I've been on Periscope since the very beginning. There are certain people that I watch every single day still, and they've moved to Haps and everything, and that's fine. But I'm really going to miss Periscope. I really am.
Well, with that in mind, I want to mention a site called Haps. Now, the reason I love Haps, this is the fundamental reason I love Haps. Haps in itself, HAPPS.TV, is a very good variant of the Periscope experience. It has an app, but it also has a desktop solution, and we're featuring it next week because Periscope is going away, and we've got the founder of HAPS coming on and several people that are using it talking about how they use it. But this is the thing that HAPS does that I've never seen done before, and I've got to show you the graphic just to work you through it. So with HAPS, you can have up to 6 guests, exactly like us, except with StreamYard you can have 10. But the thing that is great with HAPS, and what I'm calling the multiverse, I just coined that phrase myself, is that each of the guests on HAPS can send the file to 5 of their sites. I've never seen this done before. So with StreamYard, you can send the site to 8 sites that you own. LinkedIn Live, if you ever get it, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, and RTMP. But with the HAPS, every one of the 5 other guests, and you can see here it's done with 4 people, they've sent it to these other sites. So actually, in reality, with HAPS, you can send the same file to 30 places at one time. You do a show for 1 hour, you send it to 30 places. I mean, have you heard of this, Simon? Have you heard of this site, or do you want to come in and have a look at it next week?
Yeah, I mean, I've heard of it. I haven't used it, but I think the fact that other people become your broadcasters in effect, and they're sharing it on platforms with their social graph, if I can use that term.
Yeah,
I think that gives you a huge multiplier effect, as opposed to traditional aggregators that we were talking about earlier, where you put in your accounts and you stream to the accounts that you have, which is connected to the people that you know. It becomes very interesting when you're connecting to other people's social graphs. It's funny, it made me think immediately, Keith, if I remember when television programs used to come onto a TV set in the corner of the room through the air, like magic, like to a receiver. And if you'd have told me back then that we'd be watching things on the internet on something called broadband, I'd have said you were crazy. It was crazy.
Yeah.
But now we're talking about creating almost our own global television media studios, because you can reach people in an international context through other people's networks. And it's really down to this globally connected world that we're all becoming rapidly part of, isn't it? So,
well, just think of the ramifications of that. I mean, I can send the site to my 57,000 followers and my 12,000 LinkedIn friends and my 5,000 Facebook friends, but they're all my friends who know me, and I've already talked to them many times. But imagine if I send this file to your friends on LinkedIn who haven't heard of me, that haven't yet seen my YouTube videos, that haven't yet connected to me on Twitter. The actual possibilities are enormous, aren't they?
I think they are. I think the reach, and there's also an added benefit, isn't there? There's sort of the social credit element that says, well, if Jen shares something that I'm streaming here with Jen, and Jen's network now get to see it, Jen's network now suddenly know me or Keith or Doyle or Lisa, for example. So there's a social credit that's passed along.
Yes,
a subtle social credit that comes along with that, isn't it? And it's kind of, we humans kind of like tribes. They like to be part of the same. Well, if Jen likes that, or if Lisa likes that, or if Eloise likes that, then maybe I'll like it too. And what's this they're doing? Maybe I should watch this,
Well, we're coming up to the hour. I'm going to run a pattern interrupt in a minute so that people that need to leave can leave, but I want to run the room and give everyone a chance to talk. Starting with Lisa, what are your thoughts about HAPS as a variant or as an alternative, given that Periscope is going away? Is it an alternative? Is it a decent copy? Can you get your head around it?
I've only watched people on it a couple of times to try to get used to it, but I did not know about what you just said about other people on your thing being able to broadcast out. I think that is an amazing thing. It's way beyond what Periscope can do. I think that it's great for getting. I'm thinking of all kinds of applications for things that I'm doing. Anybody who follows me on Twitter knows that I somehow ended up being an accidental activist for some things that are going on here in the United States, having to do with the rights of independent contractors.
Freelancers,
Yeah, it's a big deal here for those of us who prefer to work for ourselves, and to be able to, we were planning on having a panel of people talking about that. But if we could have them on HAPS, and have each of them broadcast out to their to their audiences, we really need to spread the word about this quickly. And
Just imagine the multiplier effect. I did a gig in Jamaica, and at that time we reached 2.8 million people. I'm very proud of this gig we did in Jamaica in 2019 before the pandemic. And we reached 2.8 million people with 500 tweets. Imagine if we can do this as an experiment and just ramp it up. Imagine the reach.
I do have a question though. I mean, when is there an aspect of that in which you're actually kind of fragmenting the audience because you're not having everybody come to the same place to watch something, where it's if it's going out to 30 different places, you've got like 2 people here and 5 people there.
But look at it on the left. Look at this graph. On the left of the graph, all of the comments show up in one place.
That's true. The comments are in one place. Yes. So it does actually kind of bring people from different platforms into one conversation, and that's really exciting. So I didn't know about that. I was just looking for a Periscope alternative so I wouldn't miss my favorite Periscopers.
Well, it's anyway. I'm featuring this next week. Next week I'm doing a whole show with the CEO. So I want to bring Eloise on for a couple of reasons. One is Doyle has asked me to ask you what the name of your cool app is. So tell us what that is, and we'll put that in the show notes.
Yeah, that's just the Andy Grace Media software system. So go to andygrace.com and you can read all about it there. ANDYGRACE.com.
Andygrace.com.
Yep.
So, a radio legend dude. You can tell him I said that, but and he's good mates with a good mate of mine. But so it's andygrace.com.
Yeah, so basically Andy's been a broadcast professional on all the radio stations throughout Australia and over in America. And about 8 years ago, he saw the need to write some software as a computer programmer. He saw the need to write some software where you could make video on your phone and with branding and put it all together in 60 seconds. So it's been heavily used by TV journalists all around Australia instead of the big TV news camera. And emergency services use it a lot as well. So I used to be a TV news reporter, so now I actually shoot a lot of corporate videos for people just on the phone. I love it. It's really easy. Obviously, it's not heavy to carry around. I've got lots of different microphones I can use, lots of different tripods, things like that. I've done a lot with it. So
yeah, well, I've been very inspired by it, and I'll bring Doyle in to comment on that in a minute. But I want to get your take on what you think HAPS could do. Is it a revolution? Given that it's a video platform, have you heard of it, and can you see the point of it?
No, I have not heard of it. But it sounds awesome. Yeah, it sounds awesome. I can see you on it. Keith. Spreading your videos wide and far. Your shows. I should call them your shows. I really think you're the next presenter that we should all be on the lookout for. With your great personality. So I'd be interested to come and watch next week. Whatever time you're on, I'll come in and be a
little piece of news. So next week we're featuring HAPS, and I want to get you all onto that platform. I'm going to bring Doyle on in a minute to talk about it because it's a little bit clumsy. It's not quite right, but a little bit of a secret. Is it a secret? Because I'm going to tell you. It's not a secret, but a little bit of it just happened today. I just got asked by Restream to be an ambassador, which means they're going to give me the site for free if I try it. And so I will do that in season 2. I'll be trying Restream.io, comparing it directly here to StreamYard. So I'll be able to give you a very honest opinion as a user of the software, and you can see that I'm using it. And StreamYard does have enormous benefits, and Restream is a direct competitor with very similar features. So Doyle, now that you know what this app of Eloise does, and we're going to talk about HAPS, can you see what Eloise is doing, playing out in our universe? Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think HAPS does have that better interaction and that better engagement as well. That's really quite important. So it is a little bit difficult to kind of understand it, and you do have to kind of be a member first before you can actually use it as well. So it's not quite as easy to say watch on YouTube or watch on Facebook. You actually have to create an account, but that's okay because that's how you connect. And to me, that was one of the most important factors, is that you had that ability to connect with other people anywhere, you know, if they're watching or not. You could connect with them on Twitter or LinkedIn or whatever the case may be. So it really created that extra level of depth where you could continue that conversation, which to me is quite important. Because
they allow you to connect to 5 places now, so that you can connect to Twitch, you can connect to YouTube, you connect to Facebook, you can connect to one other, Periscope, and you can actually send it to Twitter proper. Doesn't show up as a feed, but you can actually send it to Twitter, and then Periscope will go away at the end of March, and they may fill that void, which is why I'm playing that game. I really want to give you all the scopers. There's 12.9 million of them. You know, the 12.9 million people that actually use Periscope, they're going to want to go somewhere, and that's really interesting. What's your thoughts, Jen? I know it's getting late there. Let's give us I'm going to give you permission to go, but what's your thoughts on Periscope going away and perhaps possibly being a replacement?
I think it's later for Simon, isn't it? Isn't it about 1 a.m. your time?
Well, I'll get to Simon in a minute.
He
seems to be a bit of a night owl, but I wanted to give you permission to go
Absolutely.
as well.
Yeah,
maybe I can bring you both on. But
yeah, I love it.
You're a Twitter, you have an app directly related to Twitter, so you'll have an insight into Periscope going away. Do you think apps could possibly fill that void?
I think so. I hadn't heard of it until this show tonight, so I've just downloaded it. So I'll have to catch your show next week as an audience member and learn all about it. So the idea that it's you can broadcast out to many more channels is amazing. But to carry on what Simon said about the whole thing about if Jen likes it, maybe I'll like it. If Keith likes it, maybe I should check it out. That whole thing, that's very important. But the other thing too, and I don't know if any of you guys felt this, so pre-COVID, and even sometimes even at these virtual events, if you're catching some of the big thought leaders in your various sectors, sometimes it feels like you're going to this conference and that conference and that conference, and it's kind of the same lineup. So what's neat about this is it just allows you to see, who's an up and coming thought leader? Who else has a point of view on this?
Who's new in the zoo?
You got it. I think it's fabulous for that, for sure.
Okay. Well, it's definitely going to be a thing. I love it. I've broadcast there many, many times, and the engagement's very high. It is a bit clumsy, and I have to say that, and the guys are working hard on that. But I have got the founder, I'm very proud of this. I've got the founder of the app coming on to talk about it, and we could be looking at the next TikTok, we could be looking at the next Snapchat, we could be looking at the next Clubhouse, and you heard it first on Better Than Real Life TV. You could see that this is obviously what I've been wanting to do since I was 4 years old. You heard it first on Better Than Real Life TV.com. So anyway, I'm rambling now, but look, I want to give everyone a chance to go and enjoy their night. And for Doyle, it's enjoy his morning because it's so much earlier there. So it's coming up to the end of over an hour now. I'm going to play a little bit of theme music. Next week, we've got the HAP show. We've got show coming up every week until Easter. Then after Easter, I'm going to have a break because it's daylight saving and it really screws my brain around. So I've got to get my head around the new timing. I'm going to come back with a new show on Restream called Better Than Real Life TV. Just decided that about 15 minutes ago. And you can find out more about all the shows we've done so far on betterthanreallifetv.com. I'm getting quite good at this. I'm getting quite good at the ramble. So I want to thank everyone on the call. We're going to play a little bit of the thank you music, and the replay will be on Twitter and Periscope immediately after the call. So thanks, everyone, and we'll see you next week.